I never thought I'd be that guy, the one who walks into a bar and finds his wife with another man. You hear about it, maybe even watch it play out in some cheap drama on TV, but you never think it's going to be your life. Not until it is. It was a Thursday night in early November, just cold enough to make you zip your jacket without thinking. I had finished work a little earlier than usual. A quiet day, mostly admin stuff. Nothing eventful. On the drive home, I passed by this bar near the suburbs, about 20 minutes from our place. I had been there once, maybe twice, back when Emily and I first started dating. It was one of those dim-lit, wood-paneled places, casual but classy enough to pretend it had history. Something told me to pull over. Maybe it was just a gut feeling, or maybe some part of me already knew. I parked in the back, near the dumpster, where the gravel crunches too loudly under your tires. I didn't even know what I was looking for. Maybe just a drink to take the edge off the week. But the moment I opened the door and stepped inside, everything changed. There she was, Emily. At first, I wasn't even sure it was her. Her hair was curled. Not in the lazy, air-dried way she usually wore it, but styled like she had spent real time on it. She was wearing heels, tall ones, and a dress I had never seen before. It was low-cut, sleek, with thin straps that clung to her shoulders like they'd been made for the occasion. She looked like someone preparing for a date, not someone grabbing drinks with a friend, not someone married. My eyes scanned the room like my body was trying to catch up with what my brain already knew. The lighting was low, casting amber shadows on the polished bar. A jazz cover of a pop song played over the speakers, too softly to recognize. The bartender, some guy in his 30s with a beard and a half-buttoned shirt, was wiping glasses like he didn't have a care in the world. Nobody looked at me. Nobody cared. Except me. Emily was sitting at the far end of the bar, far enough from the door that she must have felt invisible. Safe. Comfortable. And that's when I saw him. The man next to her had his hand on her knee, fingers barely moving, just enough to let her know he was there, and that he belonged there. She wasn't pulling away. In fact, her body leaned in toward him, not like she was trying to whisper, but like her whole posture was drawn to him, synchronized. Like this wasn't their first time sitting like that. I stood there, frozen. Not angry, not sad, just stunned. Like my brain had blue-screened. Then something caught my eye, a glint on the counter beside her purse. Her wedding ring. Removed. Just off. It sat there silently, unnoticed by anyone except me. A small, simple circle of gold we picked out together 7 years ago, after 2 months of arguing about budgets and settings and how much was too much to spend. She used to twirl it around her finger when she was nervous. Now it was off, like it had never mattered. I didn't know what to do. I didn't make a scene. I didn't yell or charge across the room. I just stood there, absorbing the image like I'd need to remember every detail. And maybe I did. She hadn't seen me yet. She was laughing at something he said. The kind of laugh that tilts your head back just a little, the kind that sounds like you want the other person to keep talking. And then, finally, her eyes drifted toward her purse. She reached for it, maybe to grab her phone, and that's when she froze. She saw the ring. And a second later, she saw me. Her eyes locked onto mine. For a moment, everything stopped, at least it did for me. The noise of the bar dulled. The music disappeared. And it was just us. No barriers. No distractions. Just one husband staring at a wife who had already let go of him. But here's what still haunts me. She didn't look guilty. Not even close. She didn't panic or flinch. Her face didn't crumble into shame or surprise. No apologies in her eyes. No regret. Just irritation. Like I had ruined her night. She blinked once, slow and deliberate. Her expression hardened, turned sharp, like a switch flipped behind her eyes. She tilted her head slightly and then whispered something to the man beside her. He followed her gaze and looked over his shoulder toward me. I couldn't hear what she said, but it must have been something like, "Don't worry about him." He didn't move his hand. She didn't tell him to. I stepped forward, half expecting her to stand up, to say something, anything, but she didn't. She just watched me approach with this tight-lipped expression, like I was some nosy stranger in the wrong place. Finally, I stood about 5 feet away from them. I didn't know what to say. My mouth was dry, my hands clenched into fists at my sides, though I wasn't even aware of it. She turned to me and said calmly, "Mark, what are you doing here?" Mark, like it was just a normal evening. "What am I doing here?" I repeated, almost laughing. "What are you doing here?" She raised her eyebrows and glanced toward the bartender, almost like she wanted backup. "I'm having a drink. What's your problem?" "My problem?" I asked louder now. Couple heads turned, but no one got involved. "You took your ring off, Emily." Her jaw tightened. So, I echoed. "That's all you've got?" She sighed, exasperated, and grabbed her ring, slipping it back onto her finger like it was some formality. "You're overreacting," she said. "It's not what it looks like." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I looked at the guy beside her, who finally stood up, adjusting his blazer like he had some business to attend to. "Do we have a problem?" he asked in that smug, flat voice people use when they think they're untouchable. I didn't even look at him. My eyes were locked on Emily. She crossed her arms, leaned back on the stool, and gave me this look, this condescending look, like I was embarrassing her, like I was the one out of line, like I didn't belong. I felt the weight of something shift right then. Not just in the bar, not just in my stomach, but in my entire understanding of who she was. This wasn't just a slip-up. It wasn't some moment of weakness or a night gone wrong. It was deliberate, planned, chosen, and she didn't care that I knew. She turned to the man beside her. I never got his name and I don't care to, and said, "Let's go." He placed a hand on her lower back, and together they started to walk past me, heading toward the exit. I stood there as she passed me, her perfume cutting through the air like a knife. For just a moment she paused. "Don't make this worse than it is, Mark," she said, her voice low and calm. I didn't answer, couldn't. I just watched her walk out the door, my world shattered behind her like a dropped glass. After the bar, I drove aimlessly for nearly 2 hours, barely seeing the road through the blur of streetlights and headlights. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't even turn on the radio. I just drove, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing tethering me to reality. When I finally pulled into our driveway, the porch light was still on, glowing softly like everything was normal. Like this was just another evening and nothing had shattered. But everything had. The front door creaked when I opened it. The house was silent. Her coat wasn't on the hook. Her shoes weren't by the door. Her scent still lingered faintly in the air, a mix of vanilla and that new perfume she'd started wearing. The one I had told her smelled different. She'd laughed and said, "That's the point." I walked into the kitchen and stood there for a long time, staring at the island where we used to eat late-night leftovers and laugh about nothing. Felt foreign now, like someone else's home, like I was intruding. I sat down, hands folded on the cold granite countertop, and started thinking. Not about the man, not about the ring, not even about what she said, but about everything that had led us here. The last 6 months unraveled in my mind like a slow, painful movie. The signs had been there. I just hadn't seen them, or maybe I had, but I didn't want to believe them. It started subtly. Emily used to wake up after me. I'd make coffee. She'd shuffle in wearing one of my hoodies, hair a mess, yawning like she hadn't slept in 100 years. But about 6 months ago, she started waking up earlier. She said she wanted more me time in the mornings. I thought, good for her. Everyone needs time to breathe. Then she started leaving for work earlier, too. At first, it was 15 minutes. Then 30. Then she was out the door before I even had a chance to say goodbye. She'd kiss me on the cheek and say, "I've got a client meeting." Or, "I'm grabbing coffee with Kara from accounting." It all sounded normal. I never questioned it. But her commutes got longer. She started complaining about traffic, about construction on her usual route. One night, she came home so late I was already in bed. I asked her what happened. She said she stayed back to help train a new hire. That was the first time I remember feeling it, that twinge in my gut. Not quite suspicion, but discomfort. Something didn't add up. She began silencing her phone more often. It used to ping constantly with texts from group chats or alerts from her favorite food blogs. But suddenly it was face down at dinner. Silent. Unreadable. I asked her once, casually, "Everything okay with your phone?" She smiled and said, "Yeah, I'm just trying to be more present." I remember feeling kind of proud when she said that, like we were growing, like she was trying. But now I know the truth. She wasn't being more present. She was just being more careful. The phone wasn't the only thing that changed. Emily changed. Her wardrobe slowly evolved. It wasn't overnight. It was little things, new jeans that hugged her hips tighter than before, heels that were a little taller, blouses that dipped a little lower. At first, I thought she was just feeling more confident. She even joked about needing to update her look for client meetings. "You don't dress for the job you have," she'd say. "You dress for the one you want." But she wasn't dressing for work. She was dressing for someone else. I remember the first time I really noticed the difference. It was a Friday. She came downstairs in a fitted black pencil skirt and a red blouse, the kind that buttons halfway and dares you to look at the rest. Her hair was straightened, her makeup flawless. She looked like someone heading to a rooftop date, not an office cubicle. I blinked and said, "Wow, big presentation today?" She paused for a split second, not long enough to notice if you weren't looking for it, and then smiled. "Yeah, big one. Wish me luck." I wished her luck. And then she kissed me on the cheek and left. That was it. Except now I remember that she forgot her laptop that day, and didn't come back for it. There were other things too, small inconsistencies that I chalked up to stress, hormones, work pressure, even seasonal depression. I told myself all the excuses because the alternative, the truth, was too painful to admit. She started going out on weekends again. Girls' nights, she said. Or brunches. Or book clubs. She'd leave Saturday morning and be gone until late afternoon. Sometimes she came back with a new book or flowers from the farmer's market. Other times she had nothing but a vague story about how traffic was insane. One Saturday, I offered to come with her to brunch. She hesitated and said, "Oh, it's just the girls. You wouldn't like it." She smiled when she said it, but something in her tone didn't sit right, like she was trying too hard to make it sound casual. Another time, she left saying she was visiting her mom, but when I called her mother later that evening to check in, her mom said, "Oh, Emily? No, I haven't seen her in weeks. Is everything okay?" I lied and said I must have misunderstood. I didn't bring it up to Emily. I wish I had. But I didn't want to believe she'd lie to me like that. I blamed everything on work stress, on her feeling stuck, on us growing older, falling into routines. I thought maybe I wasn't paying enough attention. Maybe she was just trying to feel alive again. We talked about having kids, but the conversations always fizzled out. I figured maybe she was feeling lost. Midlife crisis. Burnout. I started trying harder, cooking more, planning date nights, texting her little compliments during the day. She thanked me. She smiled. Sometimes we even had S*X, though her body always felt distant, like she was thinking about something else, or someone. Then there were the mood swings. One week, she'd be warm and bubbly, hugging me from behind while I did the dishes, laughing at my corny jokes. The next, she was distant, irritable, distracted. She'd zone out during dinner, pick at her food, excuse herself early to get some work done. One night, she fell asleep with her phone in her hand. I noticed it buzzing under the covers around 11:30. I wasn't trying to snoop, but the screen lit up. The message read, "Can't stop thinking about earlier. You looked incredible today." No name, just a number I didn't recognize. I stared at it until it disappeared. Then I turned off the lamp and laid there in the dark, next to a woman who had already left me, even if I hadn't realized it yet. After that, I started noticing patterns. She always left her phone face down. She kept it on vibrate. Her screen time password changed. Her tablet had a new lock screen. She claimed it was just a security update. She started using incognito mode. She never used to care who saw her browser history. Now it was wiped clean. I noticed she'd started following new people on Instagram. Some random fitness coach, a fashion brand that only sold high-end lingerie, and one account with no photo that had no posts but followed her back. Everything made sense now, too much sense. Looking back, it's almost laughable how long I tried to pretend I didn't see it. I excused the obvious. I believed the impossible. I held onto a version of her that no longer existed because the truth was too heavy to face. But that night in the bar, when she looked me in the eye, completely unapologetic, she gave me the permission I never wanted, to see her clearly. And now I couldn't unsee it. There's a moment, right after your worst fears are confirmed, when your body doesn't quite know how to react. It's not shock. It's not anger. It's a kind of numbness, like your brain turns the volume down on everything so you can survive what you're seeing. That moment came the next morning. Emily had gone for a run, just like she always did on Saturdays. Her routine was clockwork. Stretch, half a banana, headphones in, then out the door. She always left around 7:15 and came back just before 8 o'clock. Flushed and breathless like someone who still had a place to come home to. Sometimes I'd hand her a towel and a bottle of water, and we'd talk about weekend plans. It was domestic, familiar. But that morning, as soon as I heard the front door click shut, something inside me snapped. I didn't plan it. I hadn't woken up thinking I was going to search her things. But after everything, the lies, the bar, the damn wedding ring on the counter, I couldn't sit still. I needed truth. Not guesswork. Not suspicion. Truth. She always kept her tablet on the kitchen counter, plugged in next to the fridge. She never used a password on it before. Said it was annoying to type it in all the time. But recently, I noticed it had been locked. Just like her phone. Just like her laptop. Like everything else in our life, it had suddenly gone behind closed doors. Except today. She forgot. I tapped the screen. It lit up. No lock. I wish I could say I hesitated. That I gave her the benefit of the doubt one last time. But I didn't. I opened the messaging app and started scrolling. The first few conversations were with coworkers, harmless stuff, office chatter, a group thread about a baby shower I vaguely remembered her attending. But then I saw a contact that didn't fit. Ben, consulting. It was in parentheses, the kind of label you use when you want something to seem professional. I clicked on it. And that's when the ground dropped out from under me. The most recent message was from the night before, just a few hours after she walked out of that bar with him. You left your cologne on my jacket. Now it smells like you. Not complaining. There were photos, too. One was of her legs on a motel bed, bare feet, painted toes, a glass of wine on the nightstand. Another of him shirtless, smirking into the camera like he'd just won something. And the captions, still thinking about last weekend. You're unreal. Next time let's just stay in bed the whole day. I kept scrolling. My hands started shaking, but I couldn't stop. There were months of messages. Flirty at first, then int asterisk mate. Explicit. Inside jokes. Plans. Secret rendezvous. A hotel confirmation email dated exactly the same weekend she said she was visiting Claire for a mental health retreat. There was no doubt, no excuse, no more room for interpretation. She was having a full-blown affair. Not just emotionally, not just flirtation. A real, physical, calculated, ongoing relationship, complete with hotel reservations, matching lies, and a version of herself I had never met. One message from 2 weeks ago hit me harder than the rest. It's weird being home after being with you. He doesn't notice anything. It's like I'm not even there. I read that line over and over. He doesn't notice anything. I wasn't blind. I wasn't stupid. I was trusting. And now I was broken. I heard the front door open. Panic surged through me, but I closed the app and slipped the tablet back exactly where I found it. I moved to the sink, turned on the tap, pretended to rinse a mug. My heart thundered in my chest like I just committed a crime. Emily walked in, cheeks flushed, ponytail damp with sweat. She smiled, actually smiled. Like we were okay. Like the world was still intact. Hey, she said, grabbing a towel. It's gorgeous out. I might take the long route next time. I looked at her, this woman I had shared 10 years with, vacations, bills, holidays, inside jokes, quiet Sundays, and for the first time she looked like a stranger. I forced a nod. Sounds good. She poured herself water like nothing was wrong, like she hadn't just spent the last several months carving out a second life behind my back. As she walked past me to head upstairs, I caught a glimpse of her phone screen lighting up. Preview message flashed. Then, can't wait to see you Monday. Same hotel? She didn't notice me looking. I stood there for a long time after she disappeared up the stairs, trying to steady my breathing. My stomach twisted in on itself. Rage simmered beneath my skin, but above all, I felt this aching emptiness, like I'd been erased from my own marriage. I went outside, sat on the back porch, and stared at the lawn I had mowed 3 days ago. It looked fine, like nothing had changed, but everything had. I started to question every memory we had, every kiss, every dinner, every fight we had ever made up from. Which parts were real? Which moments were just placeholders between text messages with him? It was terrifying how easy it had been for her, how smooth the lies had come, how she still looked me in the eye and said things like, "I love you," while scheduling hotel meetups with someone else. I thought about confronting her right then, exploding, demanding answers, but I didn't. I wanted her to feel safe. I wanted her to believe I still didn't know, because if she had gone this far to keep it hidden, I wanted to see exactly how far she'd fall when it all came out. Over the next few days, I became someone else, quiet, observant, calculating. I mirrored the version of me she thought she could manipulate. I asked about her day. I cooked dinner. I folded laundry. And all the while, I documented everything. *TS. Message exports. Email confirmations. I saved them all. She didn't suspect a thing. One evening, she came home late from a client dinner and kissed me on the forehead. I fought the urge to flinch. "You're a good man," she said softly. I smiled. "You have no idea." That night, she slept like a baby. I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling. I had the proof. I had the timeline. And now I had a choice to make. What I expected after discovering the truth was confrontation, tension, maybe even guilt leaking through the cracks of her behavior. What I didn't expect was indifference. Emily didn't spiral. She didn't grow distant or nervous. She didn't suddenly become careful with her words. If anything, she relaxed. The morning after I found the messages, she woke up humming. She moved around the kitchen like it was any other Saturday. Coffee brewing, toast in the toaster, hair tied back loosely like she hadn't just spent weeks betraying me. She even asked if I wanted eggs. I said no. My voice came out flatter than I expected. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did and she just didn't care. The days that followed felt surreal, like I was living in a house where only one of us knew the truth. And the one who knew didn't matter. She kept her routines. Her gym bag by the door. Her laptop on the couch. Her phone face down, buzzing softly with notifications she pretended not to see. She didn't apologize. She didn't confess. She didn't even hint that something was wrong. It was like our marriage existed only as background noise to her real life. One night, I watched her scroll through her phone while we sat on opposite ends of the couch. Her face lit up in a way I hadn't seen in months. Not for me. She smiled at something on her screen, thumbs moving fast, familiar, comfortable. "Who's that?" I asked casually. She didn't look up. "Just a friend." That word used to mean something. Later that evening, after she went to shower, I heard her phone buzz again. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. I already knew who it was. She came out wrapped in a towel, hair damp, cheeks flushed. She looked lighter, freer, like someone who had already moved on. And then came the moment that sealed it. 3 days after the bar, after the proof, after the silence. I was scrolling mindlessly through social media during my lunch break. I wasn't looking for anything. I wasn't stalking her profile. I didn't even follow her closely anymore. But there it was. A photo. Emily sat on a picnic blanket under a clear blue sky, sunglasses perched on her nose, a bottle of champagne between her knees. Beside her was him, the man from the bar. His arm draped casually around her shoulders like it belonged there. The caption read, "When you finally let yourself be happy." I stared at it for a long time, The comments rolled in beneath it. Smiling emojis, heart reactions, people congratulating her like she just announced a promotion or a new chapter everyone was excited about. I clicked her profile. Her relationship status was gone. Not changed to separated. Not it's complicated. Just single. 10 years. Erased with a tap. People we both knew liked the post. People who had been to our house. People who drank wine at our table. People who smiled at our wedding photos. Not one question. Not one raised eyebrow. Just acceptance. I felt something inside me go quiet. That night, she came home late again. She set her purse down, kicked off her shoes, and went straight to the kitchen like nothing had happened. I was already there, sitting at the table, phone face up. She saw the screen. She didn't panic. She sighed. "You saw it," she said, like I'd noticed the weather. "So that's it?" I asked. My voice didn't shake. "That's how I find out I don't exist anymore?" She leaned against the counter, arms crossed, expression tired. Not ashamed, just annoyed. "I didn't think it was a big deal," she said. "We've been drifting for a long time. Drifting. Like this was mutual. Like we both let go at the same time. You didn't even tell me," I said. "You just deleted me." She shrugged. "I didn't want to deal with the drama." The drama. That's what our marriage had become to her. An inconvenience. A mess she didn't want to clean up properly. "I didn't do this to hurt you," she added. "I just needed to be honest with myself." I laughed, once short and bitter. "You were honest with everyone except me." She didn't respond. Instead, she grabbed a glass from the cabinet and poured herself wine. Red. The expensive bottle we were saving for our anniversary. She took a sip and said, "I think it's best if we give each other some space." Space. She had already taken everything else. That night, I slept on the couch. Not because she asked me to, because the bed felt wrong. Like I was lying in a place I'd already been replaced. Over the next few days, she stopped pretending altogether. She openly texted him in front of me. Took calls in the next room without lowering her voice. Left for hours without explanations. She started coming home with that same faint scent I'd noticed before. Not her perfume, but his. I became invisible. A roommate. A ghost. A logistical problem she hadn't solved yet. And the worst part? She wasn't cruel. She was indifferent. Cruelty would have meant she still cared enough to hurt me. Indifference meant I no longer mattered at all. I realized then that the affair wasn't the most painful part. Being erased was. I stopped waiting for her to say something. Stopped waiting for the confession, the apology, the tearful moment of truth where she'd admit what she had done and realize what she'd thrown away. It never came. She didn't flinch when I got quiet. She didn't ask why I didn't text her during the day or why I stopped offering to cook. She didn't notice that I slept facing the wall now, or that I no longer asked when she'd be home. She didn't notice anything. Or maybe she did, and this was exactly what she wanted. A clean drift into silence, no confrontation, no guilt. Just a slow fade out of a life she'd already stepped away from. But I wasn't fading. I was planning. It wasn't about revenge. I wasn't interested in hurting her the way she'd hurt me. That would have required me to be petty, angry, childish. What I wanted was clarity. And consequences. I spent a few days quietly gathering everything I had. *TS from her tablet. Phone records. Social media activity. Copies of hotel booking confirmations forwarded from her email. I organized everything into a shared folder titled "For Emily." I never sent it to her, but I knew I would. First, I sent it to someone who deserved to know. Her older sister, Rachel. Rachel and Emily weren't particularly close. Not anymore, but Rachel had always been fair. Grounded. She and I used to talk at family gatherings, usually off to the side. Both of us watching the chaos unfold like referees without whistles. I respected her. So I sent the file. No caption. No explanation. Just a message that read, "I think you should see this. I'm not asking for sides. Just the truth." It was a gamble. But a few hours later, she replied, "Mark, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. I'll talk to her. If you ever need anything, You know how to reach me." I didn't reply. I wasn't doing this for allies. I was doing it to reintroduce the truth into a world she had been painting with lies. But that wasn't the part that shook her. What got to her, really got to her, was something small. One afternoon, while she was in the shower, I went into the attic and pulled out a photo album. The old kind, leather-bound, filled with glossy prints from our early years' vacations, birthdays, the night we moved into our house. But the photo I was looking for wasn't in the album. It was in a frame. Our wedding day. She hated that picture. Not because it was bad, it was beautiful actually, but because she always said it looked too perfect. Like we were pretending. I always thought that was the point. It showed us standing under a willow tree in late September. The leaves starting to turn gold, sunlight pouring through her veil like something out of a painting. She was smiling. I wasn't. I had this overwhelmed, stunned look on my face. Like I couldn't believe I had convinced someone like her to say yes. I took the photo out of the frame, scanned it, and printed a copy. Then I found a black marker, and I wrote 5 words across the bottom. "You used to be her." That was it. No name, no threat, no context. I left the photo on her side of the bed, just before she got home. That night, she came in around 10 p.m., buzzing with fake energy the way she always did after seeing him. I didn't look up from my book. She didn't say much. She walked into the bedroom and stopped. Silence. I didn't hear her pick up the photo, but I heard the shift in her breath. She stood there for a long time. I stayed on the couch, kept reading. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I didn't move. I didn't speak. A few minutes later, she walked out of the bedroom slowly. The photo wasn't in her hands. She stared at me. I didn't look up. Finally, she said, "Why would you do that?" I closed the book calmly and looked at her. "Do what?" "That photo," she said. "That was cruel." "No," I said. "What you did was cruel. That was just a reminder." She didn't say anything, just stood there, looking smaller than I'd seen her in months. For the first time, she didn't seem in control. She turned and walked away. No more humming in the kitchen the next morning. No more late-night showers with her music on. She started glancing at me again, really looking, like she was trying to figure out what I knew, how much and what I'd do next. It rattled her. The next evening, she came home earlier than usual. No makeup, no perfume. She looked tired, genuinely tired, like she hadn't slept. Her hair was tied up messily, and she wore an old hoodie I hadn't seen her touch in over a year. I was sitting in the dining room, working on my laptop. She walked in slowly and said, "Can we talk?" I didn't respond right away. I let the silence settle. Then I closed my laptop. She sat down across from me, folded her hands, and took a breath. "I know you're angry," she began. "I'm not," I interrupted. "Not anymore." That threw her off. She blinked. "Then what are you?" I leaned back in my chair. "Done." The word landed like a body on the table. She swallowed. "I messed up." I nodded. "You did." "I don't know why I did it," she said, looking down at her hands. "It wasn't about him. It wasn't even about you. I just lost myself." I didn't respond. "I thought I was unhappy," she continued, voice trembling slightly. "But I think I was just ungrateful." Still, I said nothing. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Do you hate me?" I thought about it. "I don't hate you," I said slowly. "But I don't trust you. And I don't think you even trust yourself." She wiped her eyes, nodded, then said something that caught me completely off guard. "I ended it." I raised an eyebrow. "2 days ago," she added, "I told him I couldn't do it anymore, that I needed to figure out who I was without all of this." I didn't ask if that was true. It didn't matter. The damage was done. "You made your choices," I said, "and now I'm making mine." She stood up. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "What do you want me to do?" I stared at her for a long moment. Then I said, "Pack a bag. Go stay with your sister." She didn't argue. She just nodded, slow, quiet, defeated, and walked out of the room. That night, For the first time in months, the house was silent in a different way. Not empty, not tense, just still. And in that stillness, I realized something. She thought she had all the power, but I had something stronger, peace, and I had just reminded her what it looked like. After Emily left for her sisters, the fallout began. I didn't speak publicly. I didn't post anything online or send mass texts. But truth has a way of leaking out, especially when people aren't as discreet as they think. The man she cheated with, he wasn't some secret stranger. He was a client from her firm, someone high enough up the food chain to make this personal and professional. HR got involved. Apparently, someone forwarded **TS. I never asked who. Emily was placed on leave, pending an internal investigation. By the end of the week, she was fired for violating company conduct and misusing travel expenses. I found out later that the hotel stays had been billed to a corporate card. As for him, the man she risked it all for, his personal life collapsed even harder. His ex-wife found out everything, and she didn't just get mad. She got full custody. Their divorce was fast and ugly. His reputation, torched. Emily tried to pivot. New job, new apartment, new self-discovery posts on Instagram, filtered to look soft and empowering. But you can't hide cracks with a caption. You don't just restart when the people around you have already seen the truth. She tried to rebrand her destruction as healing. But every foundation she tried to build kept sinking. I disappeared from her orbit. No contact. No more mutual friends. I took back my time, my space, and finally, my peace. I started waking up early again. Went for walks. Ate better. Focused on work. Even picked up furniture restoration. Something about sanding away damage and revealing something solid underneath just made sense. Eventually, I met someone new. We weren't a perfect story. We were honest. I told her everything. About the betrayal, the guilt, the quiet rage. And she didn't flinch. She stayed. Not because I was fixed, but because I was real. Sometimes I still think about that night in the bar. The moment Emily's eyes landed on my wedding ring sitting beside her purse. That tiny detail unraveled the lie. But I don't feel bitterness anymore. I feel free. Because healing isn't about erasing pain. It's about surviving it and choosing not to live there anymore.